Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Just coincidentally, as I did last time I gave class, there's a lot of material to cover, as today is the disappearance day of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, so I'm just going to go right through the Sanskrit translations, synonyms, and purport like that. Uvacha kayashtayantyasya bandhanam nayanam safi mucchatam esha brahmano nitaram guru. Translation. She, Draupadi, she could not tolerate Ashwatthama's being bound by ropes. And being a devoted lady, she said, release him, for he is a Brahmana, our spiritual master. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As soon as Ashwatthama was brought before Draupadi, she thought it intolerable that a Brahmana should be arrested like a culprit and brought before her in that condition, especially when the Brahmana happened to be a teacher's son. Arjuna arrested Ashwatthama knowing perfectly well that he was the son of Dronacharya. Krishna also knew him to be so, but both of them condemned the murderer without consideration of his being the son of a Brahmana. According to revealed scriptures, the teacher, our spiritual master, is liable to be rejected if he proves himself unworthy of the position of a guru or spiritual master. A guru is called also an acharya, or a person who has personally assimilated all the essence of the Shastras and has helped his disciples to adapt the ways. Ashwatthama failed to discharge the duties of a Brahmana or teacher, and therefore he was liable to be rejected from the exalted position of a Brahmana. On this consideration, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna were right in condemning Ashwatthama. But to a good lady like Draupadi, the matter was considered not from the angle of Shastric vision, but from a matter of custom. By custom, Ashwatthama was offered the same respect as offered to his father. It was so because generally the people accepted the son of a Brahmana was a real Brahmana by sentiment. Because generally the people accepted the son of a Brahmana as a real Brahmana by sentiment only. Factually, the matter is different. A Brahmana is accepted on the merit of qualification and not on the merit of simply being the son of a Brahmana. But in spite of this, Draupadi desired that Ashwatthama should be released at once, and it was all the same as good sentiment for her. This means that a devotee of the Lord can tolerate all sorts of tribulation personally, but still such devotees are never unkind to others, even to the enemy. These are the characteristics of one who is a pure devotee of the Lord. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chaksuhun Melitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangumlam Jayate Girim Yakripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarino Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhavevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Sri Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sometimes we hear that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati would speak on the same verse of the Bhagavatam for a month at a time. And a short 3-paragraph purport like this can give us an understanding of how that's possible. There are actually so many topics that one could expand on in this particular purport. So as you're listening to this, and you may be thinking, as I sometimes think when I listen to the class, oh, they could have covered this point, oh, they didn't say anything about that. Know that that's what's going on here, because there are so many points and topics and full classes that can be given on at least 6 or 7 different points made in this purport. So please excuse any shortcomings on my part as I've presented whatever I've been able to. If we look at the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to Sanatana Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we find that he gives him the list of the 26 qualities of a devotee. And we find two of these qualities very prominent here in the character of Draupadi. The first two, as a matter of fact. The first one is to be kind to everyone. And the second one is that one does not make others their enemy. So we've been following in this 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam the horrific crimes of Ashvatthama. And they are in no uncertain terms crimes that qualify him for death, for the full penalty of death. This has already been discussed and debated by Arjuna and Krishna, and vows have been taken, which we discussed previously. Efforts have been made, and Ashvatthama has been captured. And he's now been presented to Draupadi, who has directly been the main person to bear the burden of the result of this terrible and unjust action that Ashvatthama has done. No one is impacted more than Draupadi. The pain that a mother feels in her heart when a child is killed, when a life of a child is lost, what to speak of when a child is killed, is unimaginable. The natural order of nature, natural order of the universe is that the parents depart this world before the children do, and then the children depart this world before their children, and so on like that. So when that balance is upset by such a horrific act as what Ashvatthama has performed, it is a very grave difficulty. And Draupadi feels this very strongly. Yet, she manifests and feels within her heart great compassion. Compassion, we could even say, to the most unsuitable person. Certainly, sometimes we read in the newspapers or hear on the news of some crime where someone has killed another person's child, and then in the courtroom when the punishment and the sentence is being administered, that individual will publicly forgive that person. And many times people are like, oh, this is so amazing, how could that person do that? Well, here we see Draupadi is more or less doing this exact thing to the most unsuitable person. She's giving her compassion. Now, if there was anyone that Draupadi had due right to be unkind to without any criticism, it would certainly have been Ashvatthama. The hard edge of desire for justice, the strong desire to see execution and punishment be delivered would certainly have been accepted. Well, of course she felt that way. Her children were not only killed, but, set aside that Ashvatthama's on the opposite side of the army in the Great War. Set aside Ashvatthama's own animosity towards the Pandavas. Set aside the fact that the Pandavas were her husbands. I'm sure many people have had this experience. If you cross the husband, you may get by with the husband just passing it off, but woe be unto you for the wrath of the wife. So set aside that. Set aside the unthinkable act of her sons being killed. This has certainly made Ashvatthama her enemy. Yet, as the second quality of a devotee is, she does not desire to create any more enemies in the tail end of this great war. This enemy that she might create, we can easily say, would be the mother of Ashvatthama. Oh, you allowed my son to be killed, even though. But how is it that she's done this? Well, if we further look at this list of 26 qualities of a devotee, we find qualities number 6, number 19, and number 22 is given by Mahaprabhu. Number 6 is to be magnanimous to others. Number 19 is to offer all respects to others. And number 22 is to be merciful to others. So these 3 qualities add to the character of Draupadi. Magnanimous. What magnanimity must be there in a person to be able to have a forgiving mood towards that individual that has killed their children? How much understanding of respecting others must be there in that same state of mind? And then how much mercy to be able to manifest that externally? It's one thing to philosophically speak of it, but to be able to manifest that mercy outwardly, very advanced. Now, in the Sanskrit, the use of these two words, muchitam, muchitam, it says a whole lot. It really, Sanskrit, our Sanskrit scholar in the room here, she knows this. The Sanskrit language, a particular word can indicate so much just by the nature of that word. Now, we can imagine, along with those two words, muchitam, muchitam, the facial and hand gestures that we don't see, but that would have been there. Muchitam, muchitam. So a dismissive nature with the hand. No, let it go, you know? And then with the face, a pleading, pained look on the face that this is happening. So these three qualities indicate the feeling of being greatly aggrieved, this anxiety of a grievous wrong, of injustice being. And is it because she has no feelings of wanting to see justice brought about? I mean, certainly she does. Is it because she's simply, oh, well, I've moved beyond this, just let it go? No, actually, it's none of these things. It's because of the soft heart of a woman who has felt the pain of losing her own sons. And due to that compassionate nature, she does not want another mother to feel that same pain. So, muchitam, muchitam. Release him. I don't want to see his mother suffer. So, of course, this point's explored much deeper in the verses to come, and I won't go into that very much because we'll leave that for those speakers. But in this compassionate nature, it highlights the change in direction that this chapter is about to take. No longer are we on the edge of a bloody revenge. Okay, he's done this horrific act. Krishna and Arjuna get together. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Arjuna takes these vows. We're going to go out and get him. And they capture him. And now blood's going to be let, as they say. No, this verse is where that all takes a change now. And we'll see. This is in some part influenced by the mood of Ashvatthama. Now, Ashvatthama's displeased his father. He's been captured and handled roughly with death at his doorstep. And now he's brought before the mother of the sons that he has killed while sleeping and then beheaded. So he has no reason to expect any mercy. Nobody in this entire scenario is thinking, yay, Ashvatthama. Let's hear a big round for Ashvatthama. Nobody's got that state of mind. Everybody is like, no, he has to be punished. This is the worst thing he could have done. So he's not expecting any mercy. Now, Mahabharata describes a bit more in detail than this verses here. He's seated before her, not seated on a chair, not seated like, just sitting, okay, well, what did I do? No, he's on his knees, bound before her. And let's be fair, we can easily ascertain that he's been roughly handled. Krishna and Arjuna are gone to get him for strict punishment. He's done this horrific act. Okay, put your hands out. We're going to tie him up. Okay, get into the back of the chair. We're going to take you away. We can just understand this is a war zone. There's definitely a little bit more to the picture here. But Ashvatthama, so he's been brought forward. He's been roughly handled. He's been bound up, probably beaten. Let's be honest here. And now brought before, get in front of her, you rascal. So he's on his knees with his head bowed. This mood of bowing the head intensifies the feeling of a pitiful sight that brings out the compassion in Draupadi. This is the son of a Brahmana. Not any Brahmana, but our own teacher, the martial arts, Dronacharya. How is he being treated in this way? So we shouldn't mistake, it's important to understand, we shouldn't mistake Draupadi as just some soft-hearted woman. She just doesn't have any proper judgment, she's a woman after all there, No, she's a warrior queen. She's born of the fire. Actually, one of her names is Ayonija, meaning one who is not born from a woman. And this also gave her one of her second names, Yagnaseni, one who is instead born of the fire. So she doesn't take her birth in the regular way any other woman has taken her birth. She hasn't come from a mother. She's born out of the flames of a fire and married to warrior kings. So this Kshatriya energy is flowing through her blood. Her father is a great Kshatriya king. Her brother, born from the fire in front of her, is a great Kshatriya king. She's born from the fire. She's married to Kshatriya kings that are the most powerful. She's not just some soft-hearted, stand-in-the-corner kind of woman. Matter of fact, Mahabharata also describes she has fiery eyes. So she, but her feminine traits and her Vaishnava nature as a totally surrendered soul to Krishna, which is also something else she's always noted for. Anytime you read the descriptions of Draupadi or her characteristics or her qualities, her complete surrender to Krishna and having a unique relationship to Krishna as a friend are always mentioned. And these are what bring forth these qualities, these 5 prominent qualities of the 26 that we see there. Just as a side note, one of her other names is Yojananganda. She had a bodily fragrance like a blue lotus that could be smelled for miles. Now, many of us have our collection of ointments or colognes or perfumes or whatever, today I'll put this one, today I'll put that one. She had no need for that. And sometimes, you sit next to a person or in the same perimeter as a person who's, whoa, lay back on a perfume there, Prabhu, We've all had that experience. Sometimes my wife accuses me of such, but I don't know about that. At any rate, this was not the case with Draupadi. She had this natural bodily fragrance that all throughout the property of New Ramanareti, if she was sitting here in the temple, you could smell it. Just imagine that. Anyway, she was also known for her great compassion to all living beings, as noted in the story of her Akshaya Putra, this famous pot that she was awarded with by Durvasa, that she could feed anyone. So much so that during the Rajasuya ceremony, when the different assignments were handed out, she was placed in charge of the distribution of prasadam, of feeding all the guests that came, because it was known that there would be unlimited facility for this and that this was her kindness to everyone. So for all of these reasons stated above, the points that are given in this purport, her concern for not breaking of the tradition and the effect it would have, the kindness that she decided, charitable mercy that she decided to show to Ashwatthama, it was all clear that she had a very clear understanding of how this would impact, the greater balance of society. This was, of course, one of Arjuna's initial arguments in the very beginning of the war to Krishna, that, if we kill all the men, it'll upset the social order. Draupadi is concerned that if we take this position of treating the son of a Brahmana so harshly like this, of setting this as the standard, of allowing this to go on, then this will upset the social custom of respecting a Brahmin's family. So she saw that if this was all allowed, it would deteriorate everything within society. This points that she had longer range vision than the immediate impact of revenge. Sometimes if someone is slighted, that feeling of revenge just takes over their entire existence, and everything they do is simply to accomplish this goal of revenge. But here we see that she's seeing much further than that. She's seeing the impact on society that this action can have and the detriment that it would bring with it. Therefore, she's willing to sacrifice her own internal want for punishment to instead, mochitam, release him, don't treat him so harshly. So all of these different points that are made, they bring us to the point in this verse, and as Prabhupada closes his purport with the following sentence: devotees are never unkind to others, even to the enemy. These are the characteristics of anyone who is a pure devotee of the Lord. This is one of those this is one of those statements that when we hear it, as I like to use the term, our ears should perk up. Oh, Prabhupada's giving indication here as to what the characteristic of pure devotee is. Our goal in devotional service is to attain pure devotional service, to make ourselves pure. So how do I do that? Oh, never unkind to others, even the enemy. It's quite a challenge, quite a responsibility, quite a difficult task to do. Devotees are never unkind to others. So if we find ourselves being unkind, we should know that we've failed the test of developing these 26 qualities of a devotee. So this closing statement alone, of course, this could be material for an entire class, an entire series of classes, a seminar on how to behave properly. But, it is good instruction for us. In this way, we can see Draupadi as an acharya. This verse mentions acharya and what the qualities of an acharya are, how they teach by action. So Draupadi, by this verse here that turns the direction of the following verses in this chapter, can be seen as acharya. So we would like to also speak today about another acharya in our line, and that would be Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas, he relocated himself from Navadvip, from Mayapur, to Jagannath Puri. And after some time there, he decided to do a tour of South India. And many things were accomplished. That's a whole other topic for discussion. But many things were accomplished in that. And one of them was to arrive in Sri Rangashetra. And when he arrived at Sri Rangashetra, he could see that day and night thousands and thousands of pilgrims are coming for the darshan of Lord Ranganath. And the hall of the temple resounded with the chanting of the different mantras, and Vedic hymns were cited, and yagnas were being performed. And in the midst of this great scene, which resembled Vaikuntha, Sri Gaurachandra arrived chanting the very sweet names of Krishna in a voice that was so beautiful it defeated 10 million Gandharvas. 10 million Gandharvas. Sometimes we'll hear a new recording. Oh, that person has a voice like a Gandharva. Okay, what about 10 Gandharvas? Okay, what about 100 Gandharvas? How about 10 million Gandharvas? Such a celestial sound. So everyone in the temple became completely dumbstruck and amazed and actually filled with great wonder at hearing this. This was something very unique. And then they saw who was the unprecedented beauty, the effulgence, the molten gold appearance, the luster of Mahaprabhu was, and his eyes were just like a full-blown lotus with tears trickling down his face. And the Brahmins began to consider, is this person a demigod? Can such symptoms and emotions actually appear in a human being? And again, the hall continued to resound with the chanting of the holy names, and then he came in front of the deity, and Mahaprabhu fell down before the deity and began rolling on the ground. It was as if a golden mountain were in front of the deities. One of the Brahmins, Sri Vyankata Bhatt, saw this divine personage, and he became restless in his own heart with great ecstasy. And his heart actually flooded with devotion. And he got up and he began to move his way through the crowds. and keep the crowds away so that they wouldn't impact the dancing and chanting of the Lord. A little reminiscent of the activities of Devananda Pandit during the kirtan of Vakreshwar Pandit. When Vakreshwar was dancing and everybody was crowding in, Devananda took this bamboo like a chokidar and pushed everyone back. So in the same way, Vyankatpata kept everyone away. And then when he finished the Sankirtan, Vyankat approached him and took the dust of his lotus feet. And Mahaprabhu gazed at him and chanted, and it was Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And Vyankatapata invited Mahaprabhu, you come to the house. So he came to the house, and of course they washed his lotus feet, and all the family members drank that foot wash. Sometimes we invite people into our homes and we try to wash their feet. Sometimes they're agreeable, sometimes they're not. And so Mahaprabhu was agreeable. Vyankatapata washed the feet of Mahaprabhu, and then all the family members drank that water. And it mentions that the house of Vyankatapata became filled with joy upon taking that bath water from the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu. Now, it's interesting that this disappearance pastime of Gopal Bhatta takes place now, because this is just in the beginning, first week or so, of Chaturmasya, the 4 months of the rainy season in which the sannyasis don't travel because of the inclement weather, and they stay in one place and do austerities. So Chaturmasya was just starting. And so Mahaprabhu stayed in the house of Vyankatapata during this period. He was a family guest, a respected personality in the home, and was treated very nicely, and he interacted with the family members. Now, it's interesting with the departure of our Bhakti Charu Swami, we see many pictures coming in. There are some nice pictures of him interacting with little children. A couple of them where they're sitting on his lap or he's holding their hands or like that, you know. This was the nature of the relationship between the young boy in the house, Gopal, and Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu would be sitting in the room or taking prasad, and little Gopal would come in and offer obeisances. Mahaprabhu would come, sit, here, take some prasad. He'd give him some prasadam off of his plate, sit him on his lap. So, how was your day? Some very much affectionate like that. And Mahaprabhu would, you know, give the remnants of his prasadam, and, you know, Father Vyankatapata would arrange for Gopal to do some services. How old the boy is not exactly clear. He was not a toddler in the sense he couldn't function, but he was not quite a young man either, so somewhere in between. So at this time, Gopal was given some different services: bring Mahaprabhu's lunch, clean the floor, do his laundry, things of this nature. So some seva was performed. Some activity of relationship was developed. Bhagavad Gita says that by service to the spiritual master, by making inquiries. So this was going on there. Anyway, this happened during the 4 months of the Chaturmasya, and then, of course, Chaturmasya finished, and what's the duty of a sannyasi? Okay, thank you very much, continue on. And it mentions that when he made his announcement that he would now depart, the house of Vyankatapata was overwhelmed in a tidal wave of tears at the anticipation of the departure of Mahaprabhu. Gopal, little Gopal, fell at the feet of Mahaprabhu, grasping those feet, and fainted. So Mahaprabhu then said, all right. I'll stay just a bit longer, just to pacify Gopal. Just imagine how sweet that exchange would have been. All right, Gopal, come on, I'll stay a little longer, no problem. All right. Go fix my bed, I'll stay. So in this way, he did stay a little longer. And at that time, being very pleased with Gopal's service and his devotion, Mahaprabhu initiated him. And he ordered him, you move to Vrindavan after the disappearance of your elderly mother and father, who are great Vaishnavas. You stay and take care of them. You always engage in the chanting of the holy names of Krishna, and after your parents have departed, then you come. So Gopal very quickly mastered all types of different fields of education because his uncle was the famous Prabhupada. And he instructed him particularly in the Bhakti Shastras. He had his other training with grammar and poetry and rhetoric and all the stuff that everyone gets trained in. And, but Prabhupada guided him in the study of the Bhakti Shastras. So, in the mind of Gopal, after Mahaprabhu left, was always the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu, and when will I meet him again? Of course, at the same time, he couldn't leave his mother and father. They were elderly, and he was caring for them, and this was Mahaprabhu's instructions. Finally, mother and father come to their final days, and they call Gopal Bhatta in. And they instructed him that when we're departed, you should go to Vrindavan and take shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then they left. Now, according to Narhari Shakar and the Bhakti Ratnakar, during this time, Gopal Bhatta was given a dream in which he had a vision of Mahaprabhu. And in this vision, he was able, by the mercy of Mahaprabhu, to witness all of Mahaprabhu's Navadvip Lila. This had already taken place. And he was able to observe all of Gauranga's pastimes there. He did not know, of course, how long before he would see the Lord again. And this pastime of the Lord taking sannyas that was revealed to him, he didn't care for it very much. He was quite distressed and began crying in this dream state, and was very much aggrieved by this idea of Mahaprabhu leaving this Navadvip Lila, where just so wonderful, and then his taking sannyas. In this dream, as he was in this feeling of great separation, Mahaprabhu embraced him and drenched him in Mahaprabhu's own tears. So he then instructed Gopal that you keep all of these things I've revealed to you secret. So in great joy, Gopal kept this within his mind until his later years. So anyway, Gopal Bhatta was about 30 when he came to Vrindavan. And unfortunately, he missed Mahaprabhu's visit to Vrindavan. So he arrived there. Rupa Goswami was there, and Rupa immediately sent word to Mahaprabhu back in Puri that Gopal Bhatta has arrived. Now, Mahaprabhu had indicated previously to Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami that Gopal Bhatta would one day be coming to Vrindavan. And when he arrives, the three of you will do great work for me. So they treated him, Rupa and Sanatana, with great, great affection. They considered him like their own brother. And the three became lifelong companions. So, knowing that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had received word of Gopal Bhatta being in Vrindavan, Gopal Bhatta was very pleased in his heart that the Lord knows that I'm here, that I've completed his instructions. Mahaprabhu, on the other hand, wanted to send some presents, some encouragement once he got the letter from Rupa that Gopal has arrived. So he sent this little wooden plank he would sit on. He didn't sit on some big thing like we're doing here, but just some small plank. We've seen these things. And part of his garments, part of his kopan, his undergarments. And then one of his upper garments, his uttar, his chadar. So these gifts were sent with one Brahmin messenger. And when Gopal Bhatta received them, just the touch of these things manifested great ecstasy in the heart of Gopal Bhatta. And he began to worship them as the Tadiya, as the personal prasad of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when he would perform the worship of his deities, he would sit on that very plank, that little wooden seat that Mahaprabhu had. And that seat and the cloth of Mahaprabhu are still to this day kept in the treasury of Radharaman. We'll move on to that a little bit later, Radharaman, but are kept in the treasury of Radharaman. And 4 times a year, they're brought out, once for Janmashtami, once for Gaur Purnima, and 2 days during the disappearance, it's either disappearance or appearance of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, left out for 2 days. And they're brought out into the main darshan space on the altar there, and you can see them very nicely. Otherwise, they're kept locked up in the treasury. So during this time, of course, the Goswamis didn't have fixed residences. They, at that time, did not yet have their deities, and they were just going through the various kunjas and forests throughout Vrindavan and studying the scriptures, compiling different scriptures, writing different literatures. And after the eventual disappearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from this earthly realm, Gopal Bhatta, his feelings of separation that he already felt intensified greatly. And to relieve these feelings of separation, the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, if you go to Nepal, then you will get darshan of me. Take a trip into the Himalayas. So, of course, he went to the famous Kalagandaki River, where the shalagrams are found. And as he took his bath there and then dipped his water pot in, then he was surprised to see that there were 12 shalagrams in his water pot. I was just getting water to do it, so he empties the pot and puts them back. And then he fills his pot again. Now, this story is told 2 different ways. One is that he filled it a second time and the shilas were still there. Another way it's told is that there were 3 exchanges, emptying and filling. At either rate, the shalagrams continued to collect in his pot. So he thought this must be the mercy of the Lord. And in this way, he took those shalagrams and returned back to Vrindavan, where he engaged in worshiping these 12 shilas. He would bring them with him. He'd tie a piece of cloth with them in it, tie a knot in it, similar like this, and he would carry them around with him, around his neck or in his bag like that. Now, one day, it was the appearance day of Nrsingadev. And there was one wealthy man that had come to Vrindavan, and he had gone to each of the Goswamis offering different cloth and jewels and ornaments to be worn by their deities. At this point, the various deities had manifested, and the different Goswamis were worshipping them. And he came to Gopal Bhatta. Here's a crown for your deity, here's a necklace for your deity, here's a shirt for your deity. And his deities are little round stones, and shalagrams. So he was feeling a little bit, well, this is very nice, but I can't accept. You please give them to someone else. And the wealthy man was, no, each of you Goswamis you must have. So, all right, thank you. So Gopal Bhatta put these articles in front of his shilas before he put them to bed that night. He kept them in a straw basket at night, like a little cushioned bed, and would cover them with a cloth. And he put these in front of him, and he said, my dear Lord, you're very merciful. You always fulfill the desires of your devotees. I wish to serve your form, a form that has legs and eyes and a smiling face and lotus eyes. If I had a deity of you, then I would be able to decorate you so nicely with all of these clothes and ornaments and jewels. Anyway, please rest nicely, and he put the cloth on it. So the next morning, as he returned from taking his morning bath, he went to the wicker basket, did his morning oblations and achman and this and that, and then he uncovered. And there, in the collection of the 12 shalagrams, the one known as Damodar had manifested into the Tribhangananda, the full 3-form pose of Krishna. Everyone's seen Radharaman. This is no news to anyone. He's, how are you supposed to do like this? Like this, like this. Yeah. So maybe about this tall, And you could, I don't know how any of us can imagine, but he was floating in an ocean of ecstasy. He fell to the ground, offered his obeisances, recited all the different prayers and mantras and Vedic hymns that he knew, and it was such a wonderful event, the appearance day of Radharaman, the day after Nrsinga's appearance day, and he offered 500 liters of milk for the bathing of Radharaman that initial day. Invited all the other Goswamis, the word got around, and everyone came for darshan, and everyone was amazed to, see just this beautiful, beautiful form of the Lord. The interesting thing is that Radharaman not only had the threefold bending form, but he had fingernails, beautiful lotus eyes, and teeth. And it's photographic evidence. It's really amazing. Some pictures of Radharaman, you'll see the smile is. And some pictures, you see it's broken a little, and the teeth are showing. You can see clearly. The photographic evidence is there. So he had these teeth. And at any rate, they all the Goswamis were just so ecstatic, so very, very happy. And we won't go into Radharaman leaving Vrindavan. That's a darker chapter. Not so much a darker chapter. At any rate, so the manifestation of this deity, of course, was without Radharani, who they now have a spot to her side. That's a whole other story. When the bathing ceremony during the summertime or during the special festivals of Radharaman takes place, he comes out from that deity room into the main altar mandap area. And if you stand all the way to as you're looking left-hand side or the deity's right-hand side, and look very carefully, you can see on his back the shalagram that he opened up and manifested from. Very, very interesting darshan. You can get 2 or 3 times a year like that. So at any rate, there's so many long stories about the service to Radharaman and like that. Well, we're already at 5 minutes to 9. Anyway, we'll go a little longer. So, as Gopal Bhatta Goswami moved on in life, he began to concern himself with the care of the deities. Now, one time, Gopal Bhatta had been traveling through Haridwar. And when he was returning, suddenly there was a very, very horrible rainstorm. And he had no shelter, he was just alone. So one Brahmin family invited him in, you please come and stay with us. And he stayed with them a day or two, and they served him very, very nicely. And no, it wasn't a family, actually, it was a mother, a husband and wife, and they didn't have children yet. So they had prayed to Gopal Bhatta that you please, if you're happy with our service, bless us that we may have a child. And Gopal Bhatta Goswami blessed him, yes, you may have a nice son, and he will be a follower of Lord Hari. So the Brahmin, in response, said, and if this comes true, then I will send my son to you to be your servant. Oh, this is very nice, okay. How many times have I been with Indradumna Swami when someone says, yes, when my son grows up, he'll be your servant, Or how many times has Indradumna Swami said, when you grow up, you can come travel and be my servant, Maybe it'll pass, maybe it won't, but it's never generally taken more seriously than that pleasant exchange. So, some 10 years passes, maybe a little bit more than that, and Gopal Bhatta is returning one day from bathing in the Jamuna to his bhajan kutir. And as he returns, there sitting in front of the bhajan kutir is a young boy. And when the boy saw Gopal Bhatta approaching, he got up and he fell down offering full dandavats. Not just obeisances, but full dandavats. So Gopal Bhatta Goswami inquired from him. He said, so, who are you? What are you doing here at my ashram? And the boy said, my home was in Devanandagram, and we lived near Haridwar. And my father has sent me here to serve you. You blessed my mother and father to have a son, and I am that son, and they have sent me here to be your servant. My name is Gopinath. And then Gopal Bhatta thought back, oh, yes, I remember that. So this boy actually remained with him, became his disciple, and became known as Gopinath Pujari Goswami. And he served Radharaman under the direction of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And he was always Naistika Brahmachari, never married. Now, at some point, Gopal Bhatta requested, I need to be sure to ensure the longevity of the worship of Radharaman. So, Gopinath, I would like to ask you to get married. As we all know from the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is the one instruction of the Guru that the disciple can refuse, as we have different examples of that throughout Shastra. So Gopinath declined. He said, I don't really want to get married. He said, but I have a younger brother named Damodar and his sons, so they could all come and they can become your disciples and they will care for the deity. So in this way, there was Gopinath, there was Damodar, and then the 3 sons who are Harinath, Mathuranath, and Hariram. And this became the 5 families that now take care of the seva of Radharaman to this day. So these are just some of the pastimes. I mean, Gopal Bhatta his life is intertwined with so many of the Braj followers of Mahaprabhu and many of the second generation, Srinivasacharya, Narottam, Shamananda, like this. But time is a little bit limited, even though the paperwork in front of me isn't. And I think we'll finish there for today. But it's wonderful to see that these lives of the Goswamis, of the Vaishnavacharyas, can be made available to us, and that we can hear about their activities, appreciate their service, and use it as an inspiration for our own path in the process of bhakti. So we'll finish there. If anybody has any questions, we'll try and take them. It's just a couple of minutes. And yes, Sesha Prabhu?
You mentioned how Gopal Bhatta Goswami made arrangements for carrying on the worship of Radharaman for centuries, eventually. Do you think the model that we had that problem also, what are we going to do to perpetuate the worship of Shamsundar, Krishna Balaram? Do we have an example from the lives of the Goswamis of how we plan for that future?
It is ideal. When Padmanabh Goswami visited here some years ago, there was a great discussion on that topic, an encouragement from him that we should do so. And just recently there was some conversation on this same point. This is, all of the older pujaris. This is a thought that we all think about. Who's gonna, 500 years from now, who's gonna be carrying on the standard for Radha Shamsundar? How will that be done? It is, and I say with all respect and politeness, a shortcoming of ISKCON as a society, that we have not assured the longevity, the historical record, and the practical direction on how our deities will be cared for, generations from now. And that is one of the problems we do see throughout our society. Many of the deities that were installed during Prabhupada's times are in distressed conditions now. So, yes, it is something that should be done. No, I don't have the vision of how we're going to bring it about. Madhumati?
Are you aware of, when you're talking about this topic, that the families take care of the deities? Now, in our movement, in order for somebody to take care of the deities, they have to be Brahmin, initiated, 16 rounds, etc. And I think that a lot of devotees here in second generation would love to come and take care of the deities or cook for them, but we have a certain standard, and because of the standard, they're not able to do so. I'm just wondering do you know what kind of standard do at Radharaman temple, do they have that kind of standard? Or?
It makes our standard look wishy-washy at best. The kitchen, where the fire has been burning for over 400 years without stopping, no one is allowed to step foot inside that kitchen except the immediate 5 families and their descendants. I was able to stand at the door and take a photograph of that fire, but the very idea of your foot crossing that door, no. As a matter of fact, oh God, how audaciously stupid we can be in our youth. I was sitting with Vishwambar Goswami many years ago, and he and I had somewhat of a friendly relationship. He was very kind to me. Many devotees did, but at any rate, I said, Goswamiji, I have a question. And he smiled very nice. He said, yes, what is that? I said, I was thinking one day I would very much like to offer arti to Radharamanji. And he smiled very big and chuckled. He said, oh, that will never happen. And he didn't say it with any malice or anger, just say, oh no, that will never happen, you foolish boy. Even within their own families, it's not that, okay, you're Brahmin, come. At a certain age, I believe it's 12, the boy is allowed to come in to be trained on a second form of Radharaman, how to dress, how to fold. They don't use pins. We survive on pins. They don't use anything like that. It's all folding and tucking, and so that all that training is there. And then when he's ready, he's allowed to go on and do backup things. Ring the bell, hand the water pot, things of that nature. Then after some time, it's working up like very, very strict system. Very strict system. We, on the other hand, we like to think, hey, I've been around for a while, why don't I get to go up there? I could dress the deities. I know how to dress, Oh, I can paint the faces really nice. They should let me go up there and do it. We have to qualify ourselves. We have to qualify ourselves. This is our shortcoming. We expect more than we're actually qualified for. So, and this is part of the problem you raise, is that if we want to be able to assure the longevity of the care of Radhashyam Sundar, we have to have willing participants that step forward from not only this coming generation, but the generation after that, and the generation after that, and the generation after that. So, this is a great issue within our society. One that's longer than a 2-minute answer that I can give. So, thank you very much. We'll finish there. Gopalabhata Goswami ki jai. Srimati Draupadi Maharani ki jai.